St. Vincent and the Grenadines National Emergency Management Organization confirmed an explosive eruption at La Soufriere volcano on Friday for the first time since 1979. Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez announced that the Cuban COVID-19 vaccine candidate Abdala will be produced in a biomedical facility in Caracas. Presidential elections were held in Djibouti this Friday, where President Ismail Omar Guelleh is expected to secure a fifth term in office. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Katrina Goss. St. Vincent and the Grenadines National Emergency Management Organization confirmed an explosive eruption of La Soufriere volcano for the first time since 1979 this Friday. Local media reported that ashfall was seen as far south as the Argyle International Airport, and ash plumes of up to 20,000 feet headed east after the eruption. Ash also fell across the volcano flanks and surrounding communities. Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves declared a disaster alert on Thursday, prompted by a change in the eruptive activity at the volcano. The island was later placed on red alert, which is the highest threat level, as it braced for heightened activity, with all emergency shelters activated. As the situation deteriorated on Thursday afternoon, the evacuation of areas in the path of the volcano was ordered. Experts at the West Indies Seismic Centre warned that further eruptions could be imminent. And Antigua and Barbuda's government offered to accommodate 250 evacuees from St. Vincent. A plan was drawn up by the Director of the National Office of Disaster Services, the Chief Immigration Officer, the Head of the Emergency Medical Services and the Manager of the Jolly Beach Hotel, where they would be accommodated. The plan includes testing all arrivals for COVID-19 and providing masks and other protective gear to ensure there is no opportunity for spread of any infectious disease. Antigua and Barbuda is also prepared to ship items to St. Vincent in the event that populations gather in stadiums or playing fields. And 4 cruise ships were expected to reach the island of St. Vincent this Friday, 2 operated by Royal Caribbean and 2 from Carnival Cruise Line, to help ferry evacuees to nearby islands or shelters elsewhere in the country. Meanwhile, a 3rd Royal Caribbean ship is expected to arrive in the coming days. Among the islands that have said they would accept evacuees are St. Lucia, Grenada, Barbados and Antigua and Barbuda. La Soufriere last erupted in 1979, and a previous eruption in 1902 killed over 1,000 people. And Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves expressed his gratitude for the support and solidarity offered by neighbouring nations in the face of the volcanic eruption.
People in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and in ordinary people, and in Grenada and in Dominica, St. Lucia, and Antigua, have responded to put people in their homes, strangers, bring tears to my eyes. I love this Caribbean.
And in a press conference on Friday afternoon, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves offered an update on the number of people evacuated and taking refuge in shelters.
When I raised it with Michelle this morning, about 4,500 persons would have moved. Of course, persons would have moved. I'm talking about moving by the buses, the minibuses, and by the boats, and by private transportation. And you had roughly the number which was given to me by Michelle this morning. She hadn't gotten all the tallies yet. It was in the region of 2,000 persons inside of shelters. There were 20 shelters operational.
The accommodation provided for those residents evacuated in St. Vincent was also explained.
Some persons have gone into guest houses hotels, and we want to see an expansion of that number. In fact, I've been in touch with Michelle Forbes about this at NEMO, and the Permanent Secretary in Tourism, who is responsible for this, because I'm very concerned. I want to see the elderly persons, the persons who have health problems, people who are shut-ins. I want to see them being placed in the guest houses and in hotels. It will cost more money.
And Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves also called for calm as the process of evacuation continues, while noting the support of neighbouring nations in accommodating evacuees.
But in all of this, I want everybody to cooperate. I don't want us to get frustrated. I don't want us to panic. I want us to be disciplined. I want us to be orderly. In respect of the persons to move regionally, I've been in touch with this morning the Prime Minister of Grenada, the Prime Minister of Antigua, the Prime Minister of Dominica. When I leave here, I have to go and talk to the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. I didn't get him, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts Nevis. But in the case of Dominica, Grenada, and Antigua, they would be ready certainly by about Sunday, maybe Monday.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez confirmed that the Cuban COVID-19 vaccine candidate, Abdala, will be produced in a biomedical facility in Caracas. The state-owned pharmaceutical company, Espromed Bio, will produce the vaccine with which Venezuela plans to immunize its population. The candidate is in the final stage of Phase 3 clinical trials and has so far proven to be safe and effective. On Thursday, the Vice President and Cuban Ambassador to Venezuela, Dagoberto Gomez, visited the lab to verify the required conditions for the production of the vaccine. According to information provided by Cuba's Health Minister, José Ángel Porter Miranda, two vaccine candidates currently in Phase 3 trials, Abdala and Soberana 02, are safe, create a positive immune response, and only rare, mild and moderate adverse reactions. Residents of the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro, aged over 65, have been receiving COVID-19 shots at one of the city's most traditional samba schools, Cacique de Ramos, which was turned into a vaccination site as the country faces a deadly surge of the coronavirus and a lack of necessary measures from the government of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro.
I was really looking forward to the time when I would get the vaccine because I am hypertensive and I have high blood sugar problems, so the risk is great. I have the feeling of a duty accomplished on my part in resorting to improve my health standard.
And poor neighbourhoods in Brazil have received a boost in their fight against COVID-19 with an innovative project that unites public and private institutions in an effort to curb the spread of the virus. Many residents of disadvantaged areas of the country have had to seek alternatives to survive the health and economic crisis in the midst of abandonment by the federal government.
Three main services: health security. We also provide COVID-19 tests, serological and PCR tests, and support for safe isolation, supporting residents with food and cleaning products. Besides the security of having food aid, there is also psychological and medical assistance. Sometimes you go to the family clinic and it's full and you are tired. I think that that's the importance of the project, not only food but all the assistance.
We have not had a single death because we take the oximeter to the patient's home to control and refer them when necessary, neither before nor after. Of course, when the healthcare system is not collapsed. Otherwise, it wouldn't matter if we brought the oximeter to the person's home. But I am sure that the impact on people's lives by having social, economic and health support makes a difference, something the state does not provide.
In Argentina, restrictions were tightened this Friday with curfews and limits on social gatherings after health authorities reported a record daily number of new COVID-19 cases. Argentine health authorities reported more than 23,000 new cases in 24 hours on Thursday. With the announcement, large outdoor and indoor gatherings have been banned, but bars and restaurants are allowed to remain open until 11 p.m. A night curfew has been imposed between midnight and 6 a.m. The new measures will last until the end of the month. The South American country has reported around 2.5 million infections and over 57,000 deaths since the beginning of the pandemic. Turkey's hospitals are feeling the strain as the country has posted record daily numbers of confirmed COVID-19 cases for the past 10 days, with nearly 60,000 new infections reported on Thursday. Heads of intensive care units in several hospitals have pointed to a serious crisis if the upward trend continues. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan eased the COVID-19 restrictions in early March to benefit the country's economy. However, with the spike in infections, he was forced to announce renewed measures such as weekend lockdowns and the closure of cafes and restaurants during the upcoming Ramadan traditions. To date, Turkey has registered over 3.7 million cases, the seventh highest number in Europe.
We're working in a very intense pandemic cycle. Can we call it a third wave? We can. We're extremely busy these days and we're intensively dealing with COVID patients. I can say that 70 to 80% of our hospital's capacity has been set aside for COVID patients, but the remaining 20% emergency cases that have been triggered by COVID that require medical care, and we're intensively dealing with those too.
If this increase in infections continues at this rate, we'll be faced with a very serious crisis. It is not just the number of intensive care beds that's needed. For now, we are able to procure the organ protection equipment we need for those patients. But if this continues at this speed and the public doesn't follow the rules, maybe these resources will also be depleted after some time.
Venezuelan ombudsman Alfredo Ruz announced on Thursday the creation of a special commission to address human rights violations against the population of the town of La Victoria in Apure state on the border with Colombia. According to the official, the commission will include 2 lawyers specializing in human rights matters to continue carrying out the proper investigations regarding the presence of armed Colombian groups in the border region. The commission will document the events and destabilizing acts carried out by groups linked to drug trafficking and supported by foreign interests, which aim to provoke conflict between the 2 neighboring countries. The Venezuelan government recently sent a letter to the United Nations and the community of Latin American and Caribbean states requesting support and collaboration in order to establish communication channels with the Colombian government in the face of the tensions in the border area, and also to support the efforts to remove anti-personnel mines placed in La Victoria and surrounding areas by the irregular Colombian armed groups. On Thursday, the Permanent Commission of the Peruvian Congress approved the report that recommends banning former President Martin Vizcarra from holding public office. The report also approved the same measure for former Health Minister Pilar Massetti and former Foreign Minister Elizabeth Astete over the irregular vaccination against COVID-19 of themselves and their acquaintances with doses intended for researchers in a clinical study. The disqualification from holding public office against Vizcarra was approved by 26 votes, 0 against and no abstentions. In his capacity as former President of the Republic, Vizcarra is accused of 6 constitutional infractions by having secretly vaccinated himself against COVID-19. And as Peruvians prepare to head to the polls on Sunday in the midst of a deadly pandemic surge to choose a new president as well as the 130 members of Congress, many continue to express doubts about the process and who to vote for. A total of 18 presidential candidates are running in the vote with no clear favourite, and polls indicating the possibility of a high level of null or blank ballots.
As a citizen, I certainly feel very unprotected because there is no accurate information about this election, which should be provided by the health and electoral authorities. The thing is that people will be in somewhat difficult situation as they vote, where maybe they didn't have time to evaluate the candidates who are in this general election. So I think that this will somehow shape the election because it will be a bit confusing.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Presidential elections were held in the small but strategically located African nation of Djibouti this Friday, where President Ismail Omar Guelleh is expected to secure a 5th term in office. Some 215,000 citizens were registered to vote, with polling stations opening early across the African Horn nation, which overlooks one of the world's busiest trade routes at the crossroads between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. Election observers said the process was running smoothly, although voters were in no rush to cast their ballots. Polling closed at 7 p.m. with the results expected on Friday night. President Ismail Omar Guelleh has ruled the country for the past 22 years. And speaking just after voting in the election, President Ismail Omar Guelleh said the vote had taken place in good conditions.
The election has taken place in good conditions. Thank God it has been peaceful, and above all, thank God the people came out to participate. Now we will wait for the results. I have fulfilled my responsibility.
In Benin, one person was killed and at least 6 were wounded by gunfire on Thursday, according to local officials and witnesses, after troops cleared protesters just days before the presidential elections. Opposition protests erupted this week and several people were detained in the West African country ahead of Sunday's vote, in which President Patrice Talon is seeking re-election and is expected to win. Opposition sectors claim the vote is skewed in Talon's favour. A column of military vehicles arrived early Thursday to disperse demonstrators in the central city of Salve, an opposition stronghold, where makeshift barricades of trees and tyres blocked a major road. The South Korean Foreign Ministry announced on Friday that Iran had released a South Korean oil tanker and its captain and crew 3 months after it was seized for alleged oil pollution. The Foreign Ministry said that the vessel, with its captain and 12 other crew members on board, departed an Iranian port on Friday morning. The release came amid speculation that Seoul and Tehran may have made progress in resolving the Middle Eastern country's call to unlock $7 billion worth of Iranian funds frozen in South Korea under US sanctions. Iran has not yet commented on the matter. The first week of talks to restore Iran's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers concluded with all sides hopeful of continuing the discussions that started in the Austrian capital. A joint commission meeting of the remaining participants of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or Iran nuclear deal, that is Iran, China, Russia, Germany, France and the United Kingdom, was held in Vienna on Friday following a virtual meeting last week and an in-person meeting on Tuesday. Iran's foreign ministry said Tehran was in favour of continuing the talks if all sides continue to exhibit political will and seriousness to restore the deal that the United States unilaterally abandoned in May 2018. The talks will continue on Wednesday. In Myanmar, residents of Lang Lon, a township near the southern city of Dawai, marched on Friday to voice their opposition to the military junta. Despite fears over violent reactions from the security forces, residents in this southern part of the country have maintained mobilisations in opposition to the February 1st military takeover for several weeks. Across the country, the threats of lethal violence and arrests of protesters have failed to suppress daily demonstrations demanding the military step down and reinstate the democratically elected government. According to local organisations, so far around 600 protesters and bystanders have been killed by the security forces. Palestinians have dismissed the US decision to resume financial support to the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, noting that Palestinians will only be truly benefited when the US ends its support for the illegal Israeli occupation. The Biden administration's decision to restore US aid of about $235 million marked a sharp break with the policy of Donald Trump, who severed all financial assistance. The new funding is in addition to $15 million announced earlier by the United States in COVID assistance to Palestinians amid criticism that Israel, a leader in vaccinating its own people, has failed to vaccinate Palestinians in territories under its occupation, despite its legal obligation to do so. However, the UN agency has stressed its needs have increased due to COVID-19 and the hardships faced by Palestinian refugees living in Syria, Lebanon and Jordan.
These funds are politicized. The money that goes to the authority and UNRWA is politicized and used to pressure us, to weaken us politically and force us to make political concessions to coincide with the plans proposed by the United States and Israel.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.